Welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. My name is Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach. I work with executives, with managers, and very often with their teams, building the range of skills that sit in the toolkit that I call leadership intelligence. And I'm here most Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So, last week we talked about habits. We started a conversation around habits, basically about your awareness of what those habits are. We looked at how new habits form, and we looked at that from the perspective of the first thing that happens is there's a cue, and that cue triggers a routine or triggers a behavior in response to the cue, and then there is a reward at the end of that. So if you're interested in learning a whole lot more about that, make sure that you either ask here for the link to last week's program and we can send that to you, or scroll back a little bit on this platform and you're likely to find it there anyway. What we also learned was that the brain has plasticity, and so we can change the things that are currently our habits. And importantly, small gradual change is best. So that brings us to talking about what's known as micro habits, or you may have read the James Clear book. If you haven't, it's a good idea to get it. It's a great read about, and he calls them atomic habits. These are the habits that are really small. They're quite small. They're easy to implement. And I guess it would be fair to say that they take minimal effort on your part. However, last week, consistency is key. You'll get a really big return when you are consistent with these small habits. The thing I love about micro habits is that they're also less intimidating. They're not so big that you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. So they're less intimidating and they're actually much more sustainable. So some examples of micro habits would be things like this: having a glass of water as soon as you wake up so that you can stay hydrated, making your bed on a daily basis. These are small things. But they make such a difference. Now, another example would be deep breathing for a few minutes so that you can actually reduce your stress levels down and you can kind of center and focus yourself. There's some examples of micro habits. In a minute, we'll talk about some that relate particularly to leadership and communication. But first, the strategies that will help you to actually embed those micro habits into your daily routine. The first one of these is what's known as a habit stack. A habit stack. Now, what you're doing with a habit stack is that you are attaching your new micro habit to an existing well-formed habit. So, for example, it might be that you attach deep breathing to cleaning your teeth. So you clean your teeth and then you do your deep breathing for a few minutes. It might be that you attach having some water on waking to going into the bathroom and going to the toilet. Do that automatically. It might be that you attach making your bed daily. Either I've just had a shower or I've just gotten dressed and I'm ready to leave the house and now I'm going to make the bed. So attach it to things that you're already doing. That's the first thing. And that's a very powerful resource because you're going off the back of something that is already well embedded into your brain and into your habits. The second thing is to look at using alarms to remind you. Half an hour has passed, I need to be doing this. Or, I've got this alarm. What's it for? Oh, that's right. I need to make sure that I'm drinking my water now. The beautiful thing here too is that not only do you have to use, or could you use alarms, you can also use a number of different apps to help you with this. So technology becomes your friend in this case. And I know if you're familiar with James Clear and Atomic Habits, he does have an app that he uses. I'm unfamiliar with the app myself, but I'm simply making a suggestion for you to how you can start to use technology to actually embed those habits in there. If you want to, you can also track your progress in some way. Now, the challenges when we're looking to build new habits are usually things like, "Oh, I forget." If you have forgetfulness, that's understandable. Don't be too hard on yourself if you miss a day every now and then. Remind yourself that consistency is key. The other thing that can happen is that you simply lack motivation. This is why the small habits and just attempting one or two at a time becomes most useful for you. That's when you're going to be able to have that consistent behavior. And because you're consistent, you're more likely to get the long-term success of it. So, some leadership intelligence examples based around leadership and communication. The first one of these would be active listening. Now, as we know, active listening is a skill that's really important in many things that we do. And what I want you to recognize that you must do here is to focus on a person without you and your brain being ready to form a response. And what we know is that active listening is a great habit for you to form because it builds trust and understanding in your team. So, a way that you could habit stack this is to actually be doing it during any daily check ins that you might be having with your team. Get into the habit of doing it then so that you're active listening, you're building that habit and that skill set, and then you can apply it in other situations. So, that's the first one. The second one is reflective practices. What do I mean by this? This is about on a daily basis, just at the end of each day, just before you're ready to go home, take a couple of minutes to think about these four questions. What went well? What didn't go quite so well? What could be better? And what's a lesson that you learned? Now, the shorter time frame you can do this in, the more likely it is to become a really positive habit for you. And the great value of this is that it identifies areas for improvement for you. And importantly, and we've been talking about this a lot in leadershipisation, all things leadership, the really important thing is that it builds greater self-awareness. And for you to develop your leadership intelligence, it's really important that you have that greater level of self-awareness. You're more likely to be open to growing and changing when you've got that self-awareness. Okay, the third one that we've got is clarity in communication or clear communication. Before you meet, before you go to a meeting, take the time to outline some key points. These are the things that I'm going to be talking to. And it might be that you outline 4 key themes, and next to those, just put 2 or 3 little dot points. These are the key things that you're going to talk about there, just so that you don't forget. Because it's really easy to go to a meeting and not actually remember all the things that you wanted to talk about, or even forget something completely or miss a main point of something. When you do this, when you take this time to plan your meeting, only going to take you a few minutes. Getting into this habit means that there's going to be better communication from you to whoever you're speaking to in the meeting. and you won't be forgetting things. So it's a great small habit, micro habit to get into. Next one, non-verbal awareness. Non-verbal awareness. Now, what we know is that around about 55% of the communication of how you receive me communicating is through my non-verbal, through what I'm doing with my head, my eyes, my hands, whatever it might be. And this gives you a really good clue to what people are saying and whether it's congruent with what their body is doing. So it's important, and this is a skill that I work with a lot of my coaching clients on. What's really important is that you start to notice what you're noticing. So this means that you've got to be better at maintaining eye contact, and you need to be doing this at every opportunity. Don't stare a person out, but actually just be leaning back sometimes in meetings and noticing what you're noticing about people. Oh, when that person spoke, this is what their body was telling me. And start to really become aware of what those different signals mean. Because although we can read a book all about nonverbal awareness, the reality is it's different for different people. Me scratching my nose might mean something completely different with someone else. It could simply mean that my nose is itchy. So take the opportunity to make that micro habit something. Notice what you are noticing. It's really impactful. Next one, open-ended questions. Open-ended questions. This is about you being curious. This is about you not rushing as a leader and a communicator to get an outcome, but exploring the information along the way. So it's going to give you a much deeper insight into the person, into the problem, into different perspectives that might be there. If you're not certain about what open-ended questions you might ask, think about those that start with what, or where, or how, or those kinds of questions. So instead of saying, did you have a good day today? Or how was your day? It's actually about saying, what was the thing that you enjoyed most about today? Ask those open-ended questions that are going to get you in a little bit deeper. Now, if you're uncertain, write some down just as a reminder for yourself, because you can use questions to really help you to be able to change tack in the conversation that you're doing. That's another small habit for you to develop, another micro habit. And all of these things, all of those ones that I've talked about, are things that can be habit stacked quite easily on top of something existing that's happening, or you can certainly be setting yourself a reminder. I need to be asking more open-ended questions. What are 4 open-ended questions that I could ask today? Okay. If there's enough interest, what we'll look at is open-ended questions as the topic for an upcoming leadershipization, because there are some really good ones that you can use or adapt to use on a regular basis. So the awesome thing about micro habits is this: each micro habit builds on others, particularly if you're habit stacking. So they all build on each other, and there's a cumulative effect that leads to this really deep level of growth and improvement. So if you can be improving by 1% a day, it makes a huge difference, an absolutely huge difference. Consistency is key. We know that. Start small, commit, and start. Get started. Don't wait until tomorrow. Think about doing this right now, because this is how you can change. You can change the habits, you can break some of those habits that have been there, you can add in habits that are likely to serve you a whole lot more. So thank you for being here today. If you've got any questions or you've got any comments, please pop them on the platform that you're viewing on. If you're watching this as a replay, I'd love it if you'd let us know by putting hashtag replay. Thank you. If you need assistance building better habits, building micro habits that are going to serve you in your role as a leader and a communicator, reach out. Let's have a conversation about that. Thank you. Bye now.